Okay, I'm going to go over my code for week 13 Learn Together. And I've already looked and there's some really good submissions. Remember, you kind of get to choose which path you want to take, whether you want to just do the form as I showed in mine, or sorry, the button to process the order that you're going to make up. Or as I think David did, he went ahead and went to what is going to be required for next week, which is fine. Do it however you're comfortable. It's always good to stretch ourselves. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and set a breakpoint right inside the event listener for my button, which is here. So then I set up an array with just some names. Now, by the way, this is actually different code than what I showed in the overview of the item because I ended up using two classes that I'll show you in a minute. So then I set up that customer array, and then I have a random function, which we've seen before, that just returns, and I send it a max, and then it gives me back first an index for the customer, right? So I can see that. And by the way, if you haven't seen this in DevTools, if once you run over the function, meaning step into it, if you don't want to see it again because you're like, that's not the issue, then you can just step over and then step over again. So now I have those, first these are prices and this is just the index. So now I do the order, and actually now that I'm looking at these could be constants. There's no reason any of this couldn't be a constant, so I should change that. I'm going to go ahead and create a new order. So my order class is up here. Now, actually, not class yet, my function constructor. We do classes next week. So then I just pass it the customer name and the item when I create new, and then I just store those in there. Now, in this case, the item is going to be an array. A multi-dimensional array, so I have an array with those in there, and you can see that when you step into it. And then we come back, and if you want to, you can roll back over, and I always find this really helpful if I roll back over, and then I can see there's two items in this array, and each item in this case has two entries. So this is a multi-dimensional array. I could have probably done it simpler, but I just decided to leave it there. Okay, so now that I have that order, that new substantiated object, basically all that means is I created an object based on my constructor function, and now I'm going to call one of the methods called order total on it. So now I'm going to step into that, and then I'm going to set an amount here as well. Oh, the other thing I didn't show you is on page load, I did set up another um, constructor function, function constructor. And this one is just for total. And this kind of goes along with what you're going to see in the week 14 attendance is I just set up an array so that what I could do is when I iterated over, which I'm doing now, there'd be two things I would, and you'll see this. So we'll just iterate over the items ordered. And then for each item, I'm just going to take the amount plus equal. So I'm going to accumulate here for each of them just to give me a total. Okay, so now I can see that I do have a total. If I roll back over here, I can tell it's 13. So this dot order amount, because it's the method inside of the order, then I'm just going to say is equal. So this is just a value in that case. But in the case of the daily sales, I'm actually, because I called this the value, the key total, then I'm going to push, and that's an array, that amount in there. So now I've done two things. I've stored the amount, and you could talk about whether this is the best way to do it. There's definitely many ways to do it. I've stored the order amount on the class for the order, and I've pushed the order amount into an array so I can accumulate the daily sales. Okay, so now I'm going to show the total. So now here I'm just setting up a string, and I'm just iterating over to, again, for each, and then I select each item. And in this case, because of the way I set up the array, I just put that string together pretty simple so I could have the string look something like this. And then I set an H3. The text content of that is a string showing that information. Then I appended it, and then I created a line just to show. And now the last thing I need to do is actually do show total sales. So in this case, I'm passing in, and actually now that I'm looking at it, I realize I don't need to do this any longer. As a matter of fact, and I shouldn't, because notice what happens here is I already modified my function here to not take in anything because I'm actually going to be referencing the sales total, right? So I need to change this because if you're not if you're not utilizing that passed in value, you shouldn't call it. So it's just clean, and that was something I need to do. So in this case, again, I'm passing something in, I'm not using it, but I ended up using just a quick reference to a reducer. A reducer, in this case, it actually reduces the method on the array. And you just set up, and this is just another way to do it. I've done it other ways, and I've given a reference here for that. And basically, all that's going to do here is iterate over. And you don't see it iterate like you have before. Sorry, this is actually the reducer here, is when it iterates over there, and it just goes through and adds up all those entries in my, matter of fact, if you come down here, you can see in my daily, there should only be, as of right now, sales, there should be only one total. Okay, so let me just go ahead and let this run so I can show you again. Oh, I must have changed it. And let me process again. So I have two orders. So now if I do daily sales, I should have two um, under total. I have two entries in here, and because it's just straight numeric values inside of an array, I can just run that reduce function to give me the total cells. Now we have seen other ways to iterate over to get cells or get totals, summations. I find this is just a little more fun way to do it, and it's I don't have to loop, and looping sometimes is more intensive in processing, but neither is necessarily wrong. Okay, hope that helps you understand at least the approach I took. I look forward to seeing your output. Have a good one.